Hey everyone, welcome to Broadband Deployment News. So is RDOF done? Can we stick a fork in it? The FCC has come out and said that they've looked at all the applications now, and they've posted those online. We'll be back with more. Thanks for joining me. Rick Husey here with Broadband Deployment News. So as I mentioned, the FCC has come out and said that they have now looked at all applications, and everybody that's put in a long-form application, these would be the long-form applications, everybody that's put in an application has either been authorized to get funds or they have defaulted. They just did their most recent default notice a week or two ago, and now they think they're done. So I think RDOF is done. I think we can stick a fork in it. I don't know if it'll necessarily be coming back with phase 2 on that, but I do want to look and see what we can find out from what they've posted today. So this is, and I've linked to this, this is a page where you can download the notice about this happening. So you just click right here, and I like how the FCC these days are, before you would click on this and it would download, then you'd open it. Now you can actually open it, and we'll open it in the same tab. The only change they could make now would be to open it in a new tab, which is what I'm going to do right here. So this is the notice, and I'll read through this real quickly. So you see, by this public notice, the Wireline Competition Bureau, in conjunction with the Office of blah, 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 announces the conclusion of RDOF Auction 904, a long-form application review. Currently, there are 379 support recipients with authorized winning bids totaling over $6 billion in support of over a 10-year term covering just under 3.5 million locations in 48 states and 1 territory. And that being, what was that? The Mariana Islands, I believe. So it's interesting because it's $6 billion, phase 1. Originally, phase 1 was supposed to be $16 billion. So RDOF total was supposed to be $20.4 billion. $16 billion of that was supposed to be in phase 1. And then phase 2 was supposed to be $4.4 billion. Phase 1 was supposed to cover all census blocks where there was no broadband located, and that was based on, at that point, Form 477 data, so you can see how far we've come. So there, at that point, it was, if there was no location that a broadband service provider reported as served in that area, and that would be anything 25 by 3 or better, then those would qualify for phase 1. So that was supposed to be $16 billion, and you see here we got $6 billion. So now we need to remember that all of this kind of kicked off in 2019. The auction was in, I think it was October or so of 2019. And then towards the end of 2020 is when the BEAD program passed. I think all of that stuff happened. So none of that was envisioned, I don't think, at that point when RDOF funds were looked at and how we were going to use this $20 billion or so to get broadband everywhere. So, I think the FCC took a lot longer, going this far out to say, hey, we've gotten all of our long form applications in. If BEAD had never happened, if the Infrastructure Act had never happened, I think we've been moving a lot quicker. Maybe it's a good thing, because a lot of people say that this was not handled well with the reverse auction and the way that the applications were reviewed after the fact, and the number of defaults. Now, the number of defaults may have also had to do with the fact that the FCC knew, hey, we've got other funding coming out with BEAD, and we don't want to fund something that may be questionable that could take BEAD locations off the map. So that may be related as well. So folks like Starlink and LTD Broadband, two of the bigger winners, were defaults. And they had a huge number of locations that are not now going to be funded by RDOF, but they are eligible for BEAD. So there may be something to do there with the fact that why they would take so long to get this done, and then also the number of defaults that were done. So see here, while authorized bids include a range of performance tiers, over 97% of locations are covered by winning bids for gigabit speed service. All Auction 904 winning bids have been authorized or defaulted, with state-level summaries of authorizations posted under the Results tab. We'll look at that. The summary provides for each authorized 904 long-form applicant the total support amount over 10 years, total number of locations, eligible census blocks. There's a lot of data that we can look at here. I'm not going to look at it. I'll show you where it is. As part of the Rural Broadband Accountability Plan. The Commission is also making available additional information from the long-form applications submitted. The Auction 904 form, long-form applications will be viewable in an application search. I will show you where that is. We'll look at a few of those. The Commission will continue to withhold from routine public inspection information related to long-form applicants' detailed technology and system design description and its project funding description, financial information for which confidential treatment was requested under a specific section. So that's pretty much it on this document. So they are saying basically they're posting the application, but they're not going to be posting confidential stuff, things that these companies would not want out in public. So this is the 904. I've linked to this as well. This is the Auction 904, the RDOF page, and that's where some of this stuff can be found. You can see they've got the results information here. In a moment, we'll take a look at the ready to authorize spreadsheet. It says updated 12/16, but I believe this is the final. So basically, since 12/16, we've known everybody that was going to be getting money, and just since then, we've had a number of defaults announced, but no further ready to authorize. And now they've reviewed everything, so that's it for phase one. I don't think they're going to come back. I don't think they're going to come back and say, "Hey, we didn't give away everything in phase one. Let's do some more auction. Let's do another auction under phase one." And I don't even think they're going to do phase two, unless they come back after BEAD is all said and done, or at least as far as we know where everything is supposed to be covered by BEAD. Then maybe the FCC could come back and say, let's do phase two of RDOF and finish everything off, or they might just as well do something else with these USF funds that RDOF funds were coming from. I don't know why they'd go back to this. I think they would just go ahead and do another report and order on a new fund that would hopefully cover everything that might be left in particular states from BEAD. So I think it's done. I think we can stick a fork in it. So we'll take a look at a couple of things here. And I did want to look at the spreadsheet. So I downloaded this. Let's see, I can make this bigger, right? Zoom. Let's go up a little bit. So I had this sorted by state. So no, I had this. Oh, I'm actually on the wrong tab. No, I'm on the right tab. Okay, so this is by state summary. Yeah. So you can see here, actually this is sorted by, that's a performance tier, that's by, what is this sorted by? By provider, I guess. I thought I had it sorted by state, but this is by provider. So you see here some of the providers that are in here. And as we scroll down, you'll see, I'm not going to bother, you can download that. So again, this is what I downloaded here. What we're looking at is this ready to authorize 904. And these are everybody that was authorized. And as I scroll down here, you'll see the final number. Wow, where is it? It's a long way. Whoop, here we go. So the final numbers again is over 6 billion and 300,458 locations approximately. And that worked out to, did I get that number somewhere? I think it was about $1,700 per location. So obviously it varied from location to location depending on how difficult an area was to serve. And this was all an auction. So some people may have bid more in a certain area than other people. And, it varied as far as how much different organizations or different operators bid. So again, you can download this and look at all of the locations. Let's see, we've got the FRN, that's their FCC reference number. We got state, got total winning bid over 10 years. So again, all of these numbers are over 10 years. So you can divide all of these by 10. And that's what they get. And then you get the number of locations, so you can see how much they're getting per location. When I say it was roughly $1,700 per location, that's over 10 years. So it's not like they're getting that all at once. That's over 10 years. And then you can see the winning bidder is, I guess, the name of the bidder. So it may vary. Like you've got Aiken Electric Cooperative, and that was part of the Prospero Broadband Consortium. You got, some of these consortiums. You got NRTC Phase 1 RDOF Consortium. Here's All West Communication, probably bid. Yeah, you see it was all West. So some of them are the same, and some of them are going to be whatever consortium or LLC they bid under. And then you got their DA numbers, whatever that is. I'm not sure. So that's that. Then you got performance tier and latency, and you can see this I have sorted by, this is sorted by provider. Yes, this is sorted by provider, and you can see where they're located, and you can see the performance tier that they bid. So most of these, as they mentioned, 97%, most of these were gigabit above baseline. And I forgot to put the image in here. I was going to share with you what these meant. But basically, gigabit is a gigabit tier, and above baseline is 100 by 20. There was a below baseline, which was 25 by 2. So if you committed to 25 by 2, that was below baseline. And then baseline, I think, was 50 by 5, something like that. So that was, the minimum was 25 by 2, but you could do above that at baseline, 50 by 5, I think it was. And then you had 100 by 20, that was above baseline, and then you had gigabit. And then latency, there were two choices for latency. I think it was over 100 milliseconds round trip and under. So low latency was considered, I believe it was under 100 milliseconds. And those things added a weight to your score. So, and the weight is a bad thing when you're going to be doing the auction. So if you were going to bid in the above baseline and not in the gigabit, then your weight was a little bit higher. So it weighed down your bid, so to speak. Now, not so much in the opening rounds of the auction, because the auction started out, I think it was at 120%. So even if you were on the, even if you were being weighed down by either the performance tier or the latency, which everybody pretty much met the latency, even Starlink met the latency. But if you were bidding on a different performance tier that had some weight to it, it would not weigh you down that much in the early going, because again, it was at 120%, and until you got to 100%, it didn't really matter. So that helped some of these folks that maybe had to do fixed wireless in very expensive areas where their bid could be, if you didn't have a lot of people bidding, you could win that. But you see here, most of them are gigabits. So as I scroll down here, you'll see this above baseline. That's, I don't know what 4IP technology, what they kind of service they provide. We've got Cable One VoIP. I'm assuming that's a cable company. We don't know for sure. We've got Seabridge Telecom. So I was surprised on this one. They've got above baseline on their bids and not the gigabit tier. I would think that would be a telephone company. We've got above baseline here for these folks. And you see wireless. I think you would see that more likely on a wireless, where they're saying, what we're going to do is something where we're at least 100 by 20 and not gigabit. But you do have some wireless folks that did gigabit. There's Domco Pacific, Fiber Light of Virginia, again, above baseline. Sounds like a fiber company, so I'm not sure why. There's an Inventive Wireless that's above baseline. Got some here, Mercury Wireless. Some are a gigabit and some are above baseline. So that's going to depend with Mercury on whether they felt they could do maybe a certain kind of wireless that would be able to do gigabit speeds, or possibly maybe they were going to do fiber to the home in certain areas, and it was not reasonable in other areas, and they were going to do just wireless. So not sure there. I saw the same thing with Windstream. Windstream had a few that were above baseline, tended to be smaller numbers of homes. So you see here 3. So Windstream's doing fiber all over the place, but here they've got 3 locations that they have above baseline. It could be that those are 3 locations that are really kind of far away that would be difficult to serve, so they're going to do fixed wireless. It can't really be DSL at that speed, 100 by 20. So most likely fixed wireless there, and it very well could turn out. Like here's one with 6. I think the biggest one they had was 59 locations where they were doing above baseline, and it's very possible that on some of these, especially maybe this one with 59 locations, that they might say, depending on how remote they are, they might say, we're just going to go ahead and do fiber, and they don't do wireless there, so I'm not sure. But you can see there, that's good information to have. And then if you want all of the census blocks, there's a ton of them you can look at. It's got every provider, and it's got all of the census blocks, the county in each state. So here, Craighead County in Arkansas, that goes on and on and on. So there's lots of data there if you wanted to look at that. Then I also wanted to show you where you can look at the application. So you can do this just on the standard FCC application search. You do, as we get there, did I click on that? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so it takes you off to their application search site. And you need to know this again is auction 904, so you need to select that. As I go to 904, I'm gonna make this a little bigger. So we got 904. Go right there, and then you can search for an applicant name. And I was going to look at some of the top winners, some of which defaulted, and a couple of which did not. So first off, we had LTD Broadband. So they were actually They were actually the top winner. They won the most amount of money. They bid in 15 states. They won when I say they won, they would have been awarded $1.3 billion based on their auction, and it was about $1,400 per location that they were looking at. And they defaulted. I think it was this year that it was announced that they were defaulted. And basically, there were a couple of things. I think when they did their forms, they were, and you can see here, they qualified on the short form and incomplete on the long form. So they defaulted on that. But I believe, if I recall, it was that they were trying to submit in many different areas the same kind of information, even though they'd be providing service with in different geographical locations. They were basically kind of duplicating the information on their technical form. And again, they may have, it could be, had BEAD not been around, maybe the FCC would have worked with them a little bit more, maybe not, I don't know. But they defaulted on everything. And again, that was the largest, the $1.3 billion, the largest amount that was awarded. So you can look in here, if you go to applicant info, and then you click on winning bids here, and you can see all the various states. There's lots of pages of it. So you see here South Dakota, Minnesota, et cetera. So if I look at, and then it's got ETC. This is another thing that would cause somebody to default. That's an eligible telecommunications carrier. So if you were doing RDOF, you had to not only do data service, but you had to do VoIP service. You had to commit to doing that. And in order to do VoIP service, you have to be designated as an ETC in your state by the local public commission or something like that, whoever it is that does that. And you had to get all of that done with a certain amount of time. And a lot of companies that were going through this process kind of fell down on that. And that's the reason that some of them defaulted in areas, because they were unable to get that done. And the FCC looked at whatever challenges they had and whatever roadblocks there were. And if they deemed that they were not trying hard enough, then they defaulted in those areas. So you see in some of these areas, they did not have ETC designation. But we'll pick one right here. So if you click this little arrow here, then you get, you can see we've got initial project review, letter of credit, commitment, there's a lot of non-public information that's not going to be shown. Spectrum access, information there, technology, system, and design. Again, some of these things they are not making public. A couple of waiver requests. So we don't see, we see spectrum access. I don't see their, we can look at their project overview. So it looks like I looked at that already. And actually, when I looked at it, I noticed they all did look pretty much the same. So if you open the project review, and I think if you look at pretty much any project review here, they're all going to look the same for LTD. So they've got just basically description, project overview of what they're doing. They list some information here. You can scroll through all the stuff. You see specific states. And I think when I was looking at another one, it looked the same. So that may be part of the issue that they had. And you see, again, you got different states. Let's go in here, look at another state. Let's see if it looks the same. Go way out here, California. Project overview. Again, some revised spectrum access. So these may be the same as well. Some waiver requests. But let's look at their project overview. And it's going to load. It actually loads in the same tab, but as you can see, the cover is the same. And as I scroll through, I'm seeing a lot of the same stuff. This all looks the same. And a lot of this could be duplicated. They're using the same kind of technology or methodology as they're doing this. But I don't know if there was enough differentiation on looking at the different locations. And it may be more on the technical, the stuff that's not public that should have been different. So we can't really know for sure what it was. But yeah, this all looks the same. You can see the same kinds of states here. What is that? Missouri, North Dakota. So they're just kind of listing them all together. But again, there's data in here that we do not have access to that could, the spectrum stuff we could look at. I'm not looking at that though, but the technology and system design, I think that was where it was. So when you're going to do your technology and system design, you couldn't just duplicate from one area to another. It didn't show that you really took the time to look at the area and actually design your, in this case, wireless system to take into account all of the various differences that you would have in different areas. It's different providing service in a mountainous area versus a flat area and those kinds of things. So I think that was part of the problem with these guys. So we can go back and do a new search. And again, I got to pick 904 if I do that. And let's see. So I was going to look at another one. Another big winner was Rural Electric Co-op, and that was a co-op. I think it might have been, this one might have been with Conexon, who does work with electric co-ops. They may have been involved in that. So we can see here they actually won $1.1 billion in 22 states, and or I said, I don't know if they actually, in some cases they may have defaulted, some of these, I don't know about them. So some of these folks may have defaulted on some of this a little bit later. So I'm just going based on what was originally announced on some of these amounts. So that was originally 1.1 billion, 22 states, and that comes out to about $1,800 per location, again, over 10 years. So if we look at theirs, and you can see application status qualified in their case. And we'll go to, let's see, we got applicant info, state and tier eligibility, admin agreements, ownership. This one does not look the same, state and tier eligibility. So again, it's gigabit, low latency, so they've got that in here. I don't see the application agreements. So that's interesting. I don't see that for them. Let's see, I'm going to go do a new search. And I was going to look at Windstream was another one. And Windstream won in 18 states, $523 million, $2,700 per location. So you can see they've got quite a few states here. And again, a lot of them set up these LLCs to do this bidding, or maybe that's how they operate in these states. I don't know for sure in each case, but you got Windstream Florida LLC and Windstream Georgia, et cetera. So Georgia, I'll take a look at that. That's my state. So click there, and you can see the application status again complete for these guys. And yeah, this winning bids, I didn't see that on the last one. So here we see winning bids for these guys, and I'll just pick one right here. So I've got ETC certification information there and designations. They've got that stuff in there. Initial project overview. Let's take a look at that. You'll see that's going to load over the LTD broadband. And in some cases, this one is, it's fairly brief. Not a lot of information. But this is just the initial right there. Go back, yeah. Wait a minute here. So they all are pretty much going to look the same there. So that's their, the rest is non-public stuff. And let's take a look at somebody else. Gonna put a 9 in there, get to 9. Got to keep doing that. 904. Resound Network. So Resound is a wireless provider, fixed wireless provider. And they actually did not default. So you see here qualified, and then their application status complete, long form right there. And I clicked on that earlier, I think. Looks like I did. So again, you've got their basic information here and their winning bids. So you can see again, lots of information here. So just pick a state and same thing. So let's take a look here. We got Arkansas. We got our ETC status there. High level design, Google hybrid background, or OpenStreet background. So I looked at that one earlier. So yeah, it's basically just showing, again, high level, looking at, how they say they'd be covering the area. I guess I could just do that. And then what else do we have? Initial project overview, same thing. It looks like, here's fiber deployments. Let's take a look at that. So that's showing that. So they basically got coverage maps here. Anything else? Initial project overview description. If I remember, this was pretty brief. Oh, this one's not too. This one's, yeah. There was one that was like a half a page. I can't remember who it was. So again, this is just their project brief, so you can check that out. But a lot of information, again, that is not public, project funding, those kinds of things, and maybe some detailed technical. And then spectrum access, I didn't look at any of these. Matrix probably provides spectrum access per. Let's just take a quick look at that and see what it is. So yeah, not that meaningful to me. And was I going to look at anybody else? Oh, SpaceX. I was going to look at. SpaceX was another one of the top bidders, $885 million to cover 35 states, and about $1,370 per location. But they also were not awarded anything. The FCC decided not to give them any funds. And, again, some of that may well have had to do with the fact that we had money coming in and did not want to take locations off the map. When I say we, the FCC didn't want to take locations off of the map for BEAD funding because we had a satellite above that could provide satellite internet. I think it's under Starlink. There it is, Starlink services. With satellite service, what were they going to do with that funding? Because the satellite's already there. The only thing I think of that they would do is they would launch more satellites for that constellation so that they could handle additional load. And maybe they could use it toward providing subsidies for the terminal that customers have to buy, which is not really that cheap. I don't know, but you can see they, under their bids here, so they've got, again, these were all, you see ETC designation is no on all of these. I don't know if that's because they just were, the FCC didn't accept anything or they just never got that in. But you can see they've got some ETC certification letters here and designated census blocks, files, documentation overview, project overview. Let's take a look at that. I think I looked at that earlier. So this is talking about the satellite technology in general, yeah. So that's kind of the overview of the technology, showing the different kinds of terminals that you can use. So again, Starlink was a kind of an interesting case, again, being satellite compared to everyone else. There was one satellite winner, I think it was Hughes, won just a couple of locations, if I recall. So, but it's an interesting situation where you've got a company, again, they've got the satellites up there, so it's not like they're going to go out and deploy anything other than maybe adding some kind of capacity in the satellite or constellation that they already have. So, so there you go. So again, I linked to this page where you can download the public notice. And I linked, I believe, to this page. Where is it? I linked to the page where you can, well, that's where you can download that. I think I linked to, I linked to the application page where you can look at the applications here. You can look those up, although you can get to that from the 904 auction page. Oh, and I linked to that. I linked to the 904 auction page that took me here. So that's back a few. If I click back here, I'll eventually get to it. So I linked to that page that got me to here. So all of those things are available if you'd like to take a look at that on your own. But so here we go. RDOF, I believe, done. I don't expect to see any RDOF funds flowing any longer in the future. I should say in the future. I think the FCC would probably, again, come up with some kind of new program if need be once BEAD is said and done. Because a lot of states are saying, hey, BEAD funding is not going to get us where we need to be. We're still going to have some locations that are not served, and those might be the final locations that would get some funding through something like an RDOF kind of program. But they will probably not do it through a reverse auction again if they do it that way. That's the other thing is if they were to go ahead and do phase 2, based on the first report and order, I don't know if they could actually do it any other way than a reverse auction. I'd have to look back at that. But they'll probably come up with a different methodology, maybe even, again, using those funds, maybe even sending that funding to the states and not directly to the operators if they can do that through USAC. I'm not sure. But anyway, all done. Hopefully we'll get everybody else covered through BEAD, through any further ARPA funding that's coming. I don't know, there's still maybe some capital projects funds that are coming. There's still USDA Reconnect out there. There's funds for that. So we'll have to see. BEAD is the big one, and all applications are now in for BEAD. All of the first and the second parts of those state documents are in now, and you can take a look at those. Everything's in. Challenge processes are starting, so we'll start to see that moving along with maybe some funds being distributed maybe as early as Who knows, maybe middle of this year for Louisiana. Louisiana, they're on top of everything. But I think a lot of these states, it's going to be later in the year as they start to get the funds to their subgrantees for BEAD. Thanks for joining me today. If this was helpful, if you give me a like on the video, I'd appreciate it. If you're not subscribed, click the subscribe button and then ring the bell, and you'll be notified when I'm live. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.